Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Three Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast with your host, your the old salty dog, John Martin, and from parts unknown in Welaka, Florida, none other than the captain of our pirate ship, Mr. Ted Yoho. Top of the morning to you, sir.
Hey, it's great to be back in the hometown of Welaka, population of about 850 people. From our trip in Italy. We had a wonderful time. Carolyn and I are on our anniversary, and absolutely amazing.
Well, I know before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show that you had a lot to do with it because you were obviously in Italy, but the women's hockey team, our U.S. hockey team, won the gold. And,
they sure did.
And defeated Canada, of all places, which is, the rivalry there has been in the news for other reasons, but our women own Who's Your Daddy in Canada now, and it's the women's U.S. hockey team. Go
we did.
USA.
We did go in there and give them a pep talk before that final match, and told them how great America was. Not really, but I think they understood that. They played well, and that was just a good feeling to see the women's hockey team win such a significant game down towards the finals. They get to the finals and they go through it.
Yeah, they won in overtime. A thrilling victory, as they say.
They sure did.
Congratulations to them. A winning team. And that brings me to my next thing, Ted. If you want to be on a winning team, like our Three Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, we want you to be. We want you to join our team because you don't win the goal without a lot of support. And we need that support to push this message, keep it going forward. So you'll see that little tagline there says contact Freddie, call Freddie, make that call, and become part of this winning team.
That's right. Our whole goal is to educate people, motivate them, and activate them. We've got some serious elections coming up, and I tell you, we are about one election away from losing this country. And all we have to do is look at the past administration and look at who's getting voted into office in America, and we're going to talk more about the good mayor of New York City and his strategy, along with Gavin Newsom. Of course, we couldn't talk politics if we don't bring in Barack Obama.
Absolutely. Well, the Democrats are coming off. We won the gold over there in Italy and Europe. I don't think the Democrats won the gold. I don't even think they got participation trophies over in the Munich security conference this past week. We talked about it on our last show in detail.
We sure did.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't seen it, go back and look at our show from last week. And
she got her training. AOC got her training from Kamala Harris, no doubt.
Yeah, she literally, Ted, on a side note, I don't know if you saw this, but when she was on her way back, she was so worried about how she'd be perceived in the United States. Apparently, she actually called the New York Times and asked them to basically, run cover for her. That's the stories I've heard. And they literally did. They basically
sure.
That she was prepared, but I can't remember the exact, but they basically made up excuses for her. Can you imagine, just for 1 second, if Donald Trump, let alone anybody in his actual entourage, his cabinet, actually answered a question about Taiwan the way that AOC did? I mean, they'd be talking about it 24/7 for 10 years from now.
They sure did. And I'm sure she put the blame on, well, it's the way the interviewer asked me the question. It was very confusing. The woman is clueless. I've always said she's ignorant. And she's untrustworthy. She's a communist. I mean, there's no doubt about it. She's trying to play on the world stage and world politics. Give me a break. You've got open brothels in your district, and you think it's okay, and you're calling for defunding the police. You got me on a tangent, John. I'm going to get off of it because it's not worth spending airtime talking about that moronic person.
Well, doesn't talk well about Boston College, where she got her degree either. I will give one Democrat that was over there a little bit of credit, and that is Gretchen.
Enlighten me.
Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, she did terrible, but when she was asked a foreign policy question, she at least had the good sense to say, well, you probably shouldn't ask me. You should ask him, and pointed towards, I believe it was our NATO representative over there. You're better off asking him. At least she knew what she didn't know, I guess. I don't know.
But it's always best to say, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that.
But one thing I know, getting to this next story, and we're going to use an article from the Daily Signal as kind of the template for it. The Democrats are going to go in full nasty in this upcoming election, and we're seeing multiple evidence of that, not the least of which is the fact that they're talking about a total or at least partial organized boycott of Donald Trump's State of the Union speech, which is next Tuesday. They're talking, Ted, about having kind of like they refer to it like the Turning Point USA halftime show, alternate halftime show. They want to have an alternate State of the Union. And I'm not talking about the traditional where the Democrat or Republican, whoever's out of power in the White House, gives a response. We're talking about an event down at the mall there in D.C. and there's at least 20 some odd senators and House members who have committed to doing this. And I don't know, it's probably going to end up being more. But what are your general thoughts on that, Ted?
Well, you were talking about the American Olympic women winning the hockey gold, the hockey match, bringing home the gold. They were racing to the top of sports, the echelons of sports. And those are the things we fight for. The Democrats are racing to the bottom to see how bad they can make this country. I mean, I don't know if you're going to play that ad of that lady running for governor or senator.
Oh, I'm going to if we can, if they'll allow us to.
In Illinois, I mean, if it's all bleeped out, that's fine. The message comes across. But this is the type of thing they are doing. And so, John, my thoughts on this whole thing is we've got that divide in America. That chasm, that split is getting wider and wider. And instead of trying to heal that and bring America together, you're seeing the Democrats driving wedges and throwing rocks in there to spread that gap further and further apart. So there are two sides in America, this side against this side. You cannot have you cannot have a united nation like America, the United States of America. You cannot have a strong nation. It weakens our nation, it weakens our security, and they ought to be run out of office. Anybody that votes for these people are anti-American. Anybody that supports them. And you look at the groups that are sponsoring this event, it's George Soros. Don't think it's just George Soros. There's Chinese money going in there, Russian money going in there, because they want the collapse of America. And these Democrats are useful idiots for them. And you want to know how I really feel?
Well, when you were saying that voting for those types of people is anti-American, I don't disagree with you. The only kind of caveat I would put on it is that a lot of people that are voting for that, especially younger people, I would put them into the category we're trying to reach about educate, motivate, activate people. They know so much, as Ronald Reagan said, they know so much that isn't true. And that's part of the problem. I think there's a lot of Americans, especially I think young, that go to vote that aren't thinking that it's anti-American. They're thinking that this is the way to go because they're not really thinking critically. They're just kind of mimicking what they've learned online and from their fellow, and they're being manipulated, Ted, in my opinion.
They really are. They're useful idiots, and they're ignorant. And I don't mean ignorant in a bad way. Ignorant is something that if you educate people, you become educated, and that's our job: is educate, motivate, activate, educate. You know the word. To educate people so that they are responsible citizens. You can't have a country like ours, liberties and freedoms. It was amazing when I was in Europe. I looked at their Generation Z. It's completely different than ours. When we went into restaurants, I mean, they're wearing nice shirts, ties, very respectful, a very multilingual culture. And I didn't see the different, the only purple hair and green hair and all the piercings and tattoos were American citizens that were over there that I saw for the most part. Now, there were some of the other, but when you have a population that is ignorant and chooses not to become educated, you're going to have a destruction of that country. And, the left and the Soroses and the people, the dark money that really hate this country, the Pritzkers, they want to rebuild it in this some kind of socialist Marxist utopia that does not exist, has never existed, and will not exist. And they're using the young, uneducated people as puppets to push this forward. All you have to do is look at the riots that were going on in Minneapolis or any other progressive city where the rioters is there. Look at the type of people that are there. Can they understand? Could they undergo the stress that it takes to defend a nation? I don't think so. But I won't get into that anymore because
Well,
I may say something I regret.
That's okay. Well, if you're just tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the Democrats are really going, and when I say Democrats, I'm always talking about the leaders. They're going full nasty leading up to this midterm.
They sure are.
And I'm going to give you more and more evidence as the show goes on. But we're specifically talking about this idea of having a completely separate event paralleling the State of the Union next week. And the one of the principal sponsors, you mentioned George Soros in passing a minute ago, but I believe he basically, his money is what funds this group called Move On. MoveOn.org or whatever.
And so Obama was a big recipient and supporter of that.
Yeah, but the money, I think, came from Soros and his life. But
now his son, Alex.
Yeah, now. Yeah, like father, like son in that sense, unfortunate. But this is what they put out in a flyer to advertise this official event that over 20 members of the legislature, the national legislature, the Senate, and the House have already committed to going to, and we'll talk about some of them in a minute. This is what their flyer says. We cannot give Trump the attention he wants or validate his lies to the American people. We cannot treat the State of the Union as business as usual. It seems to me that business as usual is what they're doing, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. And really what they're doing is they are justifying their anti-American stance to divide this nation more. I mean, it's unconscionable. And I don't know what you have to do to get these kind of organizations reeled in and give them, I'm all for free speech, as we all are. But when it's destructive speech, almost treasonous against this nation, as we've seen with what went on in with that recording by those senators and sitting members of Congress, ex-military, tell them they don't have to follow orders if they think it's illegal. I don't know. It's just a different time in this country. And the sad thing is it's becoming more and more separated and further apart instead of bringing this together. And what they're doing is definitely dividing this country more.
Yeah, well, they talk about in that pamphlet lies that President Trump and I guess the MAGA movement or Republicans in general are talking about. But I want to play a video because to me it shows just what we were talking about earlier about the fact that a lot of people vote. They just don't really understand what they're voting for. And you might say, well, how are they being manipulated? This is just this past week in the White House press conference with Karen Levitt. This is a CBS reporter who has
professional
been on the block a time or two.
That's right.
It's not like a brand new rookie coming in there. I want you to hear the question that he asked Press Secretary Karen Levitt or Carolyn Levitt and her response, and we'll come back and talk about it. Check this out.
And does the president believe he's been falsely called racist?
You're kidding, right?
No.
I will pull you plethora of examples. I'm going to get my team in that room to start going through the internet of radical Democrats throughout the years, Ed, who have accused this president falsely of being a racist. And I'm sure there's many people in this room and on network television across the country who have accused him of the same. In fact, I know that because I've seen it with my own eyes.
Where or when Does the president believe he's been falsely called racist?
I mean, like she says, are you kidding me? That saying, can you name a time basically when Donald Trump was accused that he says he was falsely accused of racism? I mean, I think she summed it up. Are you kidding me? What are your thoughts on
how
that?
do you answer that? I mean, how do you respond to that? I mean, the guy, I just don't understand that. The guy was obviously trying to get a gotcha moment and put her on the spot, but her response was great. I used to say some stupid things, and people would say, "You're kidding me." But then the people that were really slick would say, "You know what? When I was operating on your level of intelligence, I felt the same way." What they're really calling me is a dumb, a dummy.
Well, I can tell you, as a former large animal vet, Ted Yoho knows the north end of a southbound mule, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. But Ted, the thing is, I started to pull up some videos where specific political figures, very prominent figures, didn't allude to racism, literally called him a racist, but there were so many of them, I couldn't pick out one. But I'll just tell you, there's multiple ones with Biden literally as president of the United States saying that Donald Trump is a racist. There is, Jasmine Crockett has said it so many times, it's hard to fathom. AOC, basically every leading Democrat, with a few exceptions, has a video out there like Pocahontas, I call her Liawapa, Elizabeth Warren, literally calling not maybe a racist, but Donald Trump is a racist. I mean, just countless ones.
They really do. AOC called me a racist, and it's just, again, I think the point people need to, and I think people that are paying attention understand this. You look at the progression of toxic hate rhetoric that is building up. If you go back 10 years ago, actually, if you go back Obama, we started to see that in Clinton. Remember, she was talking about the deplorables and the Bible thumpers and gun clingers. So that toxic rhetoric was there. And of course, Michelle Obama came out to heal it all. When they go low, we go high. Well, they kind of missed that. And then you go back to Trump's first administration, when Maxine Water was saying, if you see somebody from the Trump administration in a restaurant, you get in their face. You saw these people run out of restaurants, and that drops, or that percolates down to the restaurant owners. There were people in these Northeast states or these liberal states that would not serve people from the administration. If they knew you were a Republican, they wouldn't let you know their business. That's how toxic this has gotten. So that was back in Trump's first administration. Look how much it's progressed. Remember Hakeem Jeffries out there with the baseball bat, and the other Democrats were all doing those short videos showing how tough they were and how mean, and they were saying dirty words like, oh, I said a dirty word, it made me feel good, just like this ad you're going to play. And so you contrast that from 10 years ago to today, and has our nation gotten better? Or are we going further down the spiral? Now, that's why I say this is a race to the Democrats, not to get a gold, but to bring this country further and further in the decay that they want.
Yeah, well, not only do they, not support the president and call it and names and everything, but you have common everyday people, if you want to call it that, working in restaurants and places like Starbucks that literally won't serve police officers now.
Absolutely.
Have literally said that we're not going to serve police officers, that type of thing. When I was growing up, they got free meals all over the place.
Sure.
People used to advertise that, but they won't serve them. And so that leads me to two things when I think about it. One is this attack focused on ICE. People need to understand, even if you totally disagree with their tactics, that it's actually a focus on law enforcement in general, because they've tried to set up in like Minneapolis that we have our own police force and they're the righteous, and that these ICE agents are the devil incarnate. When the reality was, if you go back to the George Floyd riots, those vigilantes stormed I think it was the 3rd precinct there with police officers of Minneapolis in it and burned it to the ground. So this idea that it's just on the national police officers is nonsense.
Right, and that was Timmy Waltz was waving it on, and his wife was cheering it on.
And I love the smell of the burning tires.
Yeah, that's right. And, again, that shows you these people who they really are and what they're trying to do to this nation. Again, we cannot survive with a growing faction on the left, and the dark money, the progressive money, the foreign money that are adversarial to a constitutional republic are going to keep throwing this money in there, and that divide is getting wider. And that's why people like Ray Dalio has said that we can't avoid a civil war, and other people that have been around the block say the same thing. And so how do we stop that, John? How do we stop that? How do we educate enough people in a short enough time to go into the next election to say, we're stopping. We can't do this. And it's not a progressive or a liberal or conservative or a Republican or Democrat problem. It's an American issue that if we don't pull together, this nation will be lost. When I was in Italy, there was the Roman amphitheater intact, built 2,000 years ago. It was built like year 1 AD, and it's still intact. It's a beautiful structure, but the culture's not there. They've gone away, as all great cultures or a lot of great cultures have. Do we want to be the next one? A liberal democracy, a constitutional republic? Do we want to be the next government that fills the dusty pages in a history book on the shelf that nobody reads? Because that's where we're headed.
Yeah, well, I'd like to think, Ted, that even if our society were to collapse, that we built a lot of things that would last forever. But the way the infrastructure is looking in the United States right now, I don't know if it's going to last another couple of years, well, let alone 2,000 years.
You've heard me talk about this. They've got these great structures over there, but you see a lot of them in decay that were built by great leaders, wealthy people, and the next generations kind of forgot how they got there. How'd they build that? Why'd they build it? How do we maintain it? We don't have the money to maintain it. And it happens over and over again. This is where leadership in America has to step forward. And there's going to be some tough decisions made. I mean, there are going to be some austerity measures. And, the social welfare programs, I'm glad they're there because we use them, but it's not a way of life. And we need to get people back into mode that it's okay to work. I don't know how we got into a situation in America where people think it's okay not to work and have a productive society. You just can't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
sorry about that, man. I got off track here.
No, that's okay. There's no track. We're trying to educate, motivate, and activate people and all that. So you're always on track. You're the captain, man. I'm back here with the rudder trying to make sure it's going in the right direction. But we're going to take a quick break, commercial break. Remember to call Freddie. You'll see that tagline on there. Join the fight. Be part of the cause, pushing this cause forward. And when we come back, we're going to play you what I think is a pretty uplifting video because we play some negative ones. I think this one is very positive. Ted, take us to break.
No, we're getting ready to go to break. I know everybody had a great week. Cool weather was here. It's warmed up considerably. We've got a few more cold nights coming. We'll see you after the break.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, plus you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
And we're back. And that, if you're wondering who that good-looking gentleman was on the screen there besides Mr. Ted Yoho, that was the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, because we broadcast on Mondays live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, which is in Celebration Point. If you're driving down I-75 and you see coming through Gainesville and you see the big Bass Pro right there on the interstate, if you take that next exit, that is where Celebration Point is, and Spurrier's Gridiron Grill is there. It is fantastic. You need to check it out. It
sure is. Great food, and it's just a fun place to go to. It's like the University of Florida and the Gators History Museum on football and other sports. And Coach Spurrier does an awesome job. And a lot of times you'll see him in there.
Absolutely. Well, when we went to break, we've been talking about my theme for this segment is that the Democrats are going full nasty, their leadership on leading up to the midterms. And we're talking specifically about the State of the Union and how they're talking about having literally an alternative event at the mall there in D.C. But I play you quite often the videos we play. I wouldn't say are uplifting. They're factual, but they're, kind of proving our point. But I want to play a video now because this is Black History Month, and they just celebrated it at the White House this past week. And this lady that you're about to see, she's a grandmother. Her grandson was murdered, I believe, in D.C. And she comes up and she pretty much tells it like it is about the old Donald Trump, man. So let's play it, and we'll come back and you can talk about it, Ted.
I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me because I'm standing up for somebody that deserves to be standing up for. Get off the man's back. Let him do his job. He's doing the right thing. Back up off of him. And Grandma said it. I love him. I don't want to hear nothing you got to say about that racist stuff. And don't be looking at me on the news hating on me.
And there you have it. There's Grandma. She talks about it. She says, y'all leave this man alone and let him do his job. I mean, she just puts it out there, and that is about as real as it gets. What are your thoughts on that, Ted?
My thoughts are, I wonder how many times MSNBC, CNN, Joy Reid, or The View, how many times they showed that. Or if they attacked that lady and say she was just an Uncle Tom, Thomasita puppet, a female Uncle Tom, just promoting Trump. And I don't know. I think she was sincere, honest, and it's a true fact. Got a good friend of mine that I met on the plane coming down from D.C., Duke Tanner. He was convicted, first-time felony, convicted of 2 life sentences. And he couldn't get a plea deal, and he wound up going to prison for 8 to 10, 12 years. He tried to get Obama to pardon him, and he couldn't get a pardon until President Trump. And he, a big black guy, boxer, top of his game, goes to prison, and he's a Trump supporter because Trump looks beyond color, looks beyond skin, unlike AOC and the progressives. He looks at people, and he wants to do what's right for people. This lady recognizes that and gave him a great shout out, which is needed. I mean, more people need to stand up and have the courage to stand up. And I applaud this lady, this grandmother.
Yeah, well, you ask whether they MSNB, whatever they call themselves now or new or something, if they played that video. I doubt it very much, but it kind of sparked something in me. Another video that is interesting that they don't play anymore? When's the last time?
Which one's that?
When's the last time you saw the video of the guy attacking Ilhan Omar?
Yeah. It's in there with the files.
That story's not even in the news anymore. Attacking
that file in that video is in there in the same file as Jesse Smollett, Mullet, whatever that guy's name was. I mean, where is the follow-up on that? Give me a break.
Where's the demands for the investigation and everything?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even need to get down to it. There's a message in there somewhere.
I appreciate you breaking that back up because I forgot about that. Man, what a terrible thing. That was all staged. I would put $1,000 saying that was all staged on that. And I'd like to see somebody disprove me on that. You could just tell by her reactions, the crowd's reaction, how they went after him, and everybody calmed down. She goes right back and shows you how tough she is to get her people off of how much money she's made in the criminal Somalian community up there. I'm not saying they all are, but there was $7 billion worth of criminality up there that went to the Somalian community.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one for if you're a backbencher Republican in the House right now. Yeah. I'm not naming names, but if you are, you should get up every day and demand where the investigation is into that. If you want to make a name for yourself, demand that investigation. Man. I'm just trying to help.
Oh, the Democrats. Oh, that's hate speech. You're racist. You're going after her. Where's Geraldo Rivera when you need him to do an investigation?
Oh no, man. But back to this event. So this event that we're talking about, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about the Democrats going to moveon.org and an alternative event parallel to the State of the Union to be held at the Washington Mall there. And the event is hosted by former MSNBC anchors Joy Reid and Katie Fang, I guess. And it will feature people impacted by Trump, including
Katie Fang. Is that Eric Swalwell's?
I don't know if she's the banger or not. I don't know. But he writes erotic poetry. You see that?
No, I'm glad I haven't.
Yeah, it came out that he wrote when he was in college that he wrote a bunch of erotic poetry that has just come to light. And it's
was it in Chinese characters?
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad, but it's interesting considering the source. But this list of people impacted, these are people impacted by Trump, including Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, Ed Markey of Massachusetts, Jeff Merkley of Oregon, Chris Van Hollen of Maryland. He's the Maryland guy supporter, the Maryland dad, and the Congressional Progressive Caucus Representative Craig Caesar from Texas. So what are your thoughts about the idea that these so-called leaders in the Senate are going to be holding an alternative to the State of the Union? It's just crazy.
Well, I think it's understandable, John. I mean, you said they were impacted. I was a large animal vet, and when a horse is impacted, it can't pass manure, so they get real bad off, and they get colicky, and some of them die. So if they're impacted, maybe they ought to take some X-Lax or something. I don't know. I mean, going to this, they'll have a viewership probably less than Stephen Colbert, I'm sure. And, maybe Madonna will show up and sing for them. I don't know. Or, hey, you know what? Let's bring Rosie O'Donnell over that she can be a feature speaker there.
Did you see where she's thinking about coming back now?
She did a test trip coming in to see if she'd be arrested. Nobody wants to arrest her.
There's probably a GoFundMe page over in Ireland trying to get her out of there.
Yeah.
But if you want to, the theme I've got for this portion of the show is the Democrats going nasty. If you want, I'm going to play a video, but I'm going to give you a heads up now. It is pretty vulgar. And you would think it was some gangster rappers doing it or something. But this is actually Juliana Stratton. She's the lieutenant governor of Michigan right now. And she's running for Senate to fill Durbin's seat. And she's releasing this ad literally today on the airways. And anyway, I think it speaks for itself. And we'll come back and talk about it. And I want to play it all the way to the end because the guy that this is going to comment on it is also someone you need to hear from. Check this out.
You sure do.
Fuck Trump. Vote Juliana.
Fuck Trump. Vote Juliana.
Fuck Trump. Vote Juliana.
They said it, not me. I'm Juliana Stratton, and I'm proud to have lived my whole life on the south side of Chicago. I'm not scared of a wannabe dictator. I'm running for Senate to stand up to Donald Trump. I'll abolish ICE and hold Trump accountable for the crimes he's committed, just like they said.
Amazing. Tammy Duckworth and J.B. Pritzker with the F Trump ad. Amazing.
Fuck Trump. Vote Juliana.
Fuck Trump.
Ted, I mean, that thing, like Mr. Don the Lemon says, that is Tammy Duckworth, who I know you served with at the start of that video. And at the end, you have J.D. Pritzker, the current governor and maybe presidential candidate. I mean, really, Ted? You said earlier, you quoted Michelle Obama when she said famously, when they go low, we go high. Well, so much for that. I mean, comment on that. I'm kind of at a loss for words, which is rare.
It really is. To think these people are state leaders that want to be national leaders, and they have this kind of rhetoric and hatred. They've got TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, that's a real syndrome. And these people have so much hatred for the man because the actions he's doing, I mean, there's a part of Donald Trump that's the showman. He does what he does. But a lot of things he's doing are counter the toxic programs that the Democrats had. The welfare fraud, the things that haven't been brought under control, USAID, the fraud that was in that, the immigration debacle and invasion that we had, that they supported. And, for Pritzker to be on there, he didn't say it, but he promoted it. He was in there promoting her candidacy and tell me that is the best candidate you have. The guy that's running against her he was in Congress. I served with him, very progressive, but he was a nice guy. He was respectful. He just had 180-degree views different than mine. I'm not saying he was a bad guy. I don't agree with his politics, but he was respectful, and that was somebody you could follow. And they're running after him. And all this dark money is going in there. The Pritzkers are a very dangerous family. The Pritzkers are the heir of the Hyatt hotels. They are the one, they've got a brother that's a transgender that was really big into the trans movement back in the 90s, early 90s. And they had put a bunch of money. And then their sister, I forget her name, but she was Secretary of the Treasury under Obama. And they have been infiltrated throughout government for years, their money and the influence that it has. And I would argue that the transgender brother was a big movement behind the transgender we have in our preschools, in our primary schools, and in our universities with the money they were able to fund. And I think it just continues in the same format that they're racing to bring America to the bottom as quick as they can. And why anybody would want these people in government, I don't understand. Again, we are that far apart that they are enemies of my state, is what I see. That's just me. And I don't want it that way. I want us to come together to heal America, not divide it further.
See, to me, the scariest part of all of that, and it goes back to something we were talking about earlier, about a lot of people who support some of these things don't really understand what they're supporting. And that's our job, to educate, motivate, and activate people in that. That's one of the reasons why we're doing the show. But what really scares me is a guy like Pritzker, because you can't say that about him. Pritzker is a product. His whole family is a product of the greatness of America. And he knows that.
Yeah.
This is what scares me. He's no dummy. He knows exactly what happened in his family and exactly how they got there, and that they probably couldn't have done that anywhere else. He knows that.
Maybe he's got rich person guilt. I don't know what it is.
I don't know, but what scares me about it is people like that are seeking power, in my opinion, for power's sake. George Soros is the same way. George Soros is, people, a person can be brilliant. Dr. Frankenstein was brilliant. Okay, George Soros is a brilliant guy. He is an absolute finance extraordinaire. What he's been able to accomplish, I'm just talking about his wealth coming from where he came from, is remarkable. So that guy knows exactly what he's doing. And those are the people that scare me, because they know that they're a product of the capitalist system, is why they rose so high. But why are they attacking it in such a way? That scares me, because it's not coming from ignorance.
It's not. I got to counter you a little bit. Are they a product of the capitalist system, or do they take advantage of the capitalist system? Or are they like Maduro, who became a billionaire, or Saddam Hussein, who became billionaire, his family did, or Hun Sen of Cambodia, who became a billionaire by manipulating the system in their favor? I have no use for people like that. No respect for him. If he's out there, I voted for Jimmy Carter, but I got to where I didn't like him, but he was a good person. He started Habitat for Humanity. He put his heart and his actions where his heart was. And, I can respect somebody like that, even though I disagree with politics on a lot of them. But Pritzker is a very dangerous person. AOC is a very dangerous person. Crockett, Ilhan Omar, and the list goes on. Ayanna Pressley, Cory Bush, all these people. Hakeem Jeffers, he's wanting to be a thug and a tough guy in the Democratic Party, but he's a puppet, as Chuck Schumer is. And then Cory Booker, same way. They want to show you how mean they are and how anti-Trump they are. I want to know how positive you are about America and start working your tail off or get the heck out of office. You don't deserve to be there.
Absolutely.
We deserve better.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Jimmy Carter. My thoughts on Jimmy Carter is kind of two things. One, he may be in my lifetime the best human being that's ever been president. He was a lousy
I'd have to agree with that.
He was a lousy president, but a great man, and probably one of the best ex-presidents we've had in memory too, with all the work he has done. So you can be a great human being and be a lousy president. Ted, I don't think I've said this on the show in any recent times. I guess because I grew up in the 60s, and the first president I really kind of remember was Nixon, kind of, and all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I've never looked at the office of presidency for moral guidance. I just haven't, and I know maybe we should be able to do that, but that's not the reality. I look to the people that are in my life, my surroundings, my own parents, teachers, people I had, people like yourself that I've gotten to know. These are people that I use. I don't use politicians in general, certainly not the president. And I'm not even being critical of Trump. I don't look at Donald Trump for moral guidance. I look at him for, riding this ship and getting us back on the right track. But do I think that Donald Trump is a pillar of virtue? Absolutely not. He can't hold a candle to Jimmy Carter as a man, in my opinion. Some people may freak out when I say this, but I want to get it off my chest. I don't look at him that way. But is he one of the greatest, if not the greatest presidents of my lifetime? He is. But I'm able to separate that. I wish that we elected leaders that were pillars of virtue, but we just don't have a history of that. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong.
No, you're sure right. And I don't think, like you say, I don't think we should look at him for that. I think you need to look at the man upstairs for that guidance, and you need to look in the mirror, all of us. We're all here on it. We're all humans. We're all here on earth, and we're all sinners at some point in our life. And, we just need to move the compass forward and do what we can to leave the next generation better off than we are. And we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're going to totally switch gears now, but it is in a sense connected, because it's a type of nastiness that I think New York City is about to experience. And I don't know if Mandami, it's hard for me to understand him, Ted. He is one of these useful idiots, because he's obviously a bright, articulate guy. He's very good at selling his product. I'm not so sure he's selling the right product, but he came out basically, and we'll play a little video in a minute, that says he doesn't have any choice, given that what he's inherited in New York, but to raise taxes. Imagine that, Ted.
He's like Scooby-Doo. Row.
But I want to play this video where the whole video is about an hour long. We're only going to play a short snippet of it, when Mandami is talking about that he has no choice but to raise, in this case, property taxes in the city of New York by almost 10%, just under 10%. Check it out.
God bless.
It is tempting to assume that we are engaging in the same dance as our predecessors. Let me assure you, nothing about this is typical. That's why our solutions won't be either. There are two paths to bridge this gap. The first is the most sustainable and the fairest path. This is the path of ending the drain on our city and raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers and the most profitable corporations. The onus for resolving this crisis should not be placed on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers. If we do not fix this structural imbalance and do not heed the calls of New Yorkers to raise taxes on the wealthy, this crisis will not disappear. It will simply return, year after year, forcing harder and harsher choices each time. And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes. We would also be forced to raid our reserves. To balance the budget as required by law, our preliminary budget takes the only path within our control, the second path. The options of the second path are the options of last resort. options that we will only employ if there is no other means of arriving.
Surprise, 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 Ted. He's got no choice but to raise property taxes on everyday average New Yorkers.
Well, golly, Sarge. Whatever happened there? It's funny because I did some research on that. They have the largest budget deficit since the Great Recession of 2008, $2.2 billion shortfall in 2026, predicted to be 10.4 billion next year. And so how do you fix a shortfall? I've had to do that in my personal life and our personal businesses. You got to look at increasing revenues and decreasing expenses. There's a balancing act there. And so you can't just raise taxes without getting rid of expenses. But when you look at expenses, do you want to get rid of police force? Do you want to get rid of these? Or do you want to put people back to work and get them off social dependency? So this is going to be interesting to watch this. And I guarantee you there are billions of dollars or millions of hundreds of millions going in to make sure that he succeeds, because the Marxists, the Democratic Party of America, they have to have him succeed. If not, everybody will say, run away from that. And I don't see how he's going to do it. I just got back from Europe, as everybody knows, and we got on a bus. You know what I had to do? I had to pay. It wasn't free. I got on their subway. Subways were clean. They were on time. They left. When they told you they're going to leave at 9 o'clock, they leave at 9 o'clock. Clean. I didn't have to worry about getting stabbed or accosted or pushed in front of the track. But you know what? I had to pay. Everybody understands that in a civil society that they're responsible. Madami, good luck to you, buddy. We're going to watch you.
Yeah, well, you mentioned about their budget, and I just caught a clip of this morning in preparation for the show. New York City. Now, I realize it is a big, expensive, complicated place, and it requires a large budget. But did you know, Ted, that the budget for New York City, I'm just talking about New York City, is larger now than the entire budget of the state of Florida?
No, I didn't know that.
The entire budget. Yes. New York City's budget is larger than the entire state that you and I call home.
Oh, wow. Well, and he starts off blaming the previous administration, and he's got political elected freedom to do that because he just got elected. You can always put everything on the last guy, but after you've been there a year, you own it. And from the moment he took office, he starts owning that, and they're going to hold him accountable. And he's going to raise taxes. He's got no choice but to raise taxes, and we can raise them on everybody, but it's not everybody's fault. It's the rich people. So let's go after the rich people. What do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to follow the rich people of California when Newsom put in a 5% wealth tax? They're flooding out of there. Like you put on before, they're the best real estate advertisement for Florida and Texas and the other free states like that. New York has already had a mass exodus of wealthy people. Do you think they're going to keep them in there? Or does the bar of taxing the wealthy drop down from 5 million to 1 million if they all leave, well, then if you've got $750,000, we're going to tax you because you're the wealthy. So it's a race to the bottom again, John. Perfect communist mentality.
Well, the one thing in the whole thing I think that he said was true is when he blamed it on previous Democrat mayors. That's probably true, some truth to that, not absolving him. But one of the things he's talking about cutting is that under Adams, there was a plan to increase the police force by 5,000 new officers. He's scrapping that. So you're going to be running New York City with 5,000 less officers than you thought. I want to read this quote. This is from Queensboro President Donovan Richards, who is an ally of Mandami, supported him in the campaign. But this is what he said about it. He said, under no circumstances should we consider balancing our budget on the backs of working class New Yorkers. Okay. Now, I got a news flash for you, Ted. That's what communists do. It's always been that way. I'm going to cut to the chase. Communism always puts it on the back of the working class people. Tell me where they don't do that. They don't put it on in Russia. Do you think that the taxes and all this system is based on the high, falutin people living on their Deutsches? No, it has always been, the strain is on the working class people. That's what they do.
They really do. And that's Marxist Engel principles. Each gives according to their ability and each receives according to their needs. That's a race to the bottom. There is no incentive to achieve. Your incentive is to do the least I can to survive because other people are going to pay for it. And Margaret Thatcher said it the best. Socialism always runs out when when you're depending on other people's money, it goes away. She said something like that. I didn't say it properly. You know what I mean?
She said basically, I think it was that socialism works until you run out of other people's money. That's
go.
I'm paraphrasing.
That's why you're the host.
Well, I was a huge fan of Margaret Thatcher. We talk about being ready for a woman to be president. If we get a Margaret Thatcher on the ballot, I'll be supporting her for sure.
Yeah.
But talking about these billionaires and all, Bernie Sanders, this is what the whole thing.
Oh, God bless Bernie.
Yeah, with the presidential potential run for the Democrats is very interesting already because Kamala Harris is actually leading in the polls right now. I don't know how much stock you can put in the polls, followed by 10 points back, Gavin Newsom. Nobody's polling anywhere near 50%. But Bernie Sanders is going out to California now and promoting this wealth tax, on the highest wealthy people, which
will be there on the border between Nevada and the border states of California. As people come out and promote it to them as they're leaving California.
Yeah, there's a person moving out of California literally every second right now. That's kind of that.
Is there really?
Yeah, and if you really want to see how bad it is, there's an easy test. Call up in California and try to rent a U-Haul to come to Florida or Texas. And it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. But then call up a U-Haul and try to rent one going from Florida to California or Texas to California. It's like a third of the cost because there's no demand for those. There's a huge demand
that sounds like a business model. We could make some money doing that, John.
There you go. But so Bernie is, he's really helping Gavin Newsom out, but not to be outdone. I want to play Mr. Obama. President Barack, and when I say Mr., I'm not talking about Michelle. I'm talking about Barack. But he was on a podcast. What can I say, Ted? That's why I'm down in the galley of the ship.
That's right. You swabby dog, you.
Row well and live. But Obama's, listen to this when he talks about one of the problems facing California and Democrats in general. Check it out.
Los Angeles around the homeless issue. I think morally, ethically speaking, it is an atrocity that in a country this wealthy, we have people just on the streets. And we should have we should insist on policies that recognize their full humanity, people who are houseless, and be able to provide them the help and resources that they need. But we should also recognize that the average person, doesn't want to have to navigate around a tent city in the middle of downtown. And that we're not going to be able to build a working majority and support for the resources that we need to help folks like that, whether it's drug treatment or temporary housing or what have you.
Ted, it sounds to me like Obama is not saying we need to end homeless. We just need to hide them better.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. You talk about somebody that is the epitome of elitism. Here he's sitting relaxed, like he's wanting to relate to people in his posh office or on that chair. Is this on Michelle's podcast? Is he the only guy that shows up on that?
He's on it a lot, just verbally. She beats the heck out of him on the podcast.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he president for 8 years? What did he do
to alleviate
this situation? There's cause and effect. Why are people homeless or houseless? And what has happened to fix that? And I sent you that article that Madami's doing something about that.
Yeah.
They're building housing units. I forget how many it was, 64 or
I think
100.
it's 85, if I remember right.
85 housing units he's building, but he's putting in people that have been incarcerated that are getting out that have mental health problems or medical problems, and they can't vote. So they're putting them in there. But all these people that voted for Madami to ease the housing shortages, he's putting in people that can't vote. So, these people are just, they're going to do stunts like that to say, oh, look what I did. The homelessness or houselessness, whatever you want to call it, there's cause and effect. Why are they like that? Why are we not training these people to get them where they're productive members of society, to build that self-esteem up so that they understand what's going on? This is something, again, goes back to democratic policies, whether they're drug addicts. So instead of doing drug interdiction, what do? They put sterile needles and syringes on the streets so that they don't have to get infected. And it's just asinine policies that perpetuate this instead of saying, you know what, we're going to put you in. I don't want to be like China. I don't want anybody to misunderstand this, but China puts people in work camps, re-education camps. I think there needs to be a way that we can re-educate these people and just say, once you go through this program, we're going to monitor you and we're going to help you live a productive life. And we have the wherewithal to do that. We're not putting money into that. But until we address the underlying cause, we're going to have these problems. And, again, he got elected twice, very popular president and a very destructive president, the most destructive president in American history.
Well, you're not actually giving China enough credit, because remember, there's only one man that had the power to eliminate homelessness in California, and it was very recently when the president of China came to California. The homeless people were gone overnight. So his mere presence ended the homeless people. People can read.
That's really funny. That's true. I want to. When I was in D.C., if you go by where the welfare office is, right there in the Capitol, it looks like a third world country. The people out there, the type of people. I've been in Africa, and I'm like, where am I? It was amazing that we allow that to go on in today's society. And John, this comes down to the basic, the family unit, education, teaching the very basics of what America is, personal responsibility. And we've gotten away from that because that whole Democrat mantra is, it's not your fault. The whitey took it away from you, or the elites took it away from you. They're suppressing you. They don't want you to be successful. And they sit there and they create that divide. In the meantime, your Crockett's, your AOC's, Ilhan Omar are millionaires in a system that they deride, as all the progressives do, saying how bad the system is. But they're the ones that are the elites, kind of like, what you're saying about Soros. They took advantage of the situation and the benevolence of America and use that as a weapon to divide people. Say the reason you're not wealthy is because he's got the money and he's not letting you succeed. Very toxic.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide. Make that call to support the cause. Call Freddie. I'll say this and I'll let you take us out, Ted. The American people are very generous people. But government programs simply don't work. I mean, if you want to look at two quick examples, look at like tunnels for towers. That works. A Habitat for Humanity, that works. And the American people donate hundreds of millions of dollars to stuff like that. But Ted, take us out, sir.
Well, you brought up a great point. I had a professor, he's from New Zealand, and something happened. Americans poured out, put a lot of money in there. He goes, the Americans are so benevolent and helpful. And I said, well, that's just human nature. He goes, no, it's not. Where I come from, people would turn an eye and look the other way. They would not get involved. That really is the underlying fabric of what America stands for. And I can't stress enough, ladies and gentlemen, we need your help. We need to get this message out because we are at the precipice of America changing forever. We're here to educate, motivate, and activate people. And we want to get in front of all people, but we need to get into that youth organization that Charlie Kirk did so well to educate people on really what is at stake here. We're not kidding when we're telling you these things are about to happen. All you have to do is go back and look at the last policies or the policies of the last administration. Look at how far they push America into the edge of a cliff to fall off, and they want to get back in power, and they're doing everything in their power to blame Donald Trump and how bad he is. But in the same time, they're spewing all this toxic rhetoric, as we saw from that senatorial campaign or person running for the Senate in Illinois. This has got to stop. And we're depending on you. God bless, and y'all take care.
Peace out, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
You too, my friend.